Hey everybody, it's the situational therapist. I hope you're doing well. I made a very big mistake today on TikTok, and I made the mistake of sharing my opinion about ADHD. Since I've been on that platform in the last 6 months, everything I've done on that platform up until this point has been validating to a majority of people. It really has. It really has. A majority of people who have heard my content have listened to the words that I've said and felt something in themselves that they've never felt before because I've spoken to something that no one speaks to, that no one says anything to about them, and they never ever thought that they would hear a professional say, spanking is abuse, you need to stop doing it. They never thought that they would see a professional drag parents the way that I do. They never thought they would hear that. And I have had success and I've had feedback from kids and teens. I've had feedback from adults. I've spoken to people in the UK, Indonesia. I have reached out and met, not I don't want to give myself the credit, the message that I am sending has reached out and met so many different people until today. And I've had this question in my comments a lot. What about ADHD? What do you think of ADHD? Should I get on ADHD medication? Is ADHD real? What are your thoughts? And up until this point, I have held my tongue and not talked about it because the truth of the matter is I was afraid of offending somebody. When it comes to ADHD and trauma, the two are so linked. And I don't think it matters whether you're born with ADHD or whether it is a trauma response, which I believe it is. I believe it is a trauma response. I believe that it is when you are born in a family and you know what? Let's do both. Let's do both. Both. I do believe it's both. I just worked that out in my head right now. I do believe it's both. But the difference is the families that that child gets born into. Because there are some families where a child gets born into it with ADHD, and the family will rally around this child and it will change the entire way that that family does things in their life. You can't use neurotypical techniques to try to raise a neurodiverse child, but everyone does it. And you know what some of those neurotypical techniques are? Some of them are spanking and hitting our kids. Some of them are using such emotional, just manipulation and being disappointed and withdrawing affection from them when they don't behave the way you want them to behave because their brain is wired differently. If a child with ADHD is born into a family like that, unless there are some outside supports, it can go several ways. A child can be born into a family like that where they don't want to get any treatment at all. They say medication is bad and they don't do anything, nothing. It stops there. And then you have people that have their kids doped up on so much stuff because it makes it easier for them. And then there are people in the middle. There are people who are not doping up the kids for that. And then there are also people who are not ignoring it. There is a range. I am well aware of that. What I did today was stop speaking to the range. I want the people who, when they were younger, your parents told you that you were a hard child to raise. Oh, you were so difficult. The ADHD made it so hard because you know what happens? Those people internalize that message. They internalize this idea that they are broken when they are not. The world should move. The world should change. I went on a ride today in an Uber. And when I got in that Uber, the smell of that car was so overwhelming because my boy had the air conditioner things. He had a thing hanging down. It was overwhelming. I don't like to label myself because I don't want to take away from anyone else's experience. And if I were going to assign myself a label for the benefit of the person driving the car, the label don't benefit me. I know who I am. The label don't benefit me. I have to come up with something so that you understand what I'm going through so that you cut me slack. I have to call myself something because I can't just tell you, sir, the amount of smells you have in this car is overwhelming and it's giving me a headache. Why do we live in a world where people think that you need to have so much perfume on all the time? I can smell it from like steps away. And there are some people who think that that's okay. Why do we live in a world like that? I don't want to label myself as something that I think and know that I am, but I'm afraid that if I don't, people aren't going to feel like I'm talking about them because everybody thinks they're that. Everybody likes to jump on, bro. It's not all for you. There are some people who can sit in that Uber and deal with that smell. And then there are some people who will sit in that Uber and deal with that smell and have a headache the way that I do right now. But you're not thinking about all the people that are going to be in your car. It's so ableist. The world is not designed for people who don't fit into the perfect square box. It's not. And so what happens when we have a child that is born to a family like that, that uses that language, that constantly, and from the time they were young, teaches them that you're the problem? It's you. We couldn't do what we needed to do as a family because you wouldn't sit down, because you wouldn't act right, because you wouldn't behave. Our dad left because you were so difficult. There are kids who grow up hearing this mess, get in the mental health system, and have that reinforced. It's in our paperwork, bro. The identified patient. And I was hoping that one day a therapist, a systemically oriented therapist on TikTok would stitch me in a video and say, Derrick, you're supposed to be a systemically oriented therapist and you are out here talking about parents. Isn't it the way that they are parenting? And you're exactly right. Yes, it's the way they're parenting. It's not specifically the parent. And sometimes it is. Parents abuse their kids. Like, people just don't like coming face to face with the fact that this stuff happens, man. And I see it every day. What happens to that child when they are born into a family that is unwilling to change? They make the child change. So that's one way you can get into it. You can also get born into a family where when they find out that you have ADHD, it is something that is celebrated, sometimes to a gross extent. They celebrate all the good stuff about it, but they don't talk to you about the difficulties. And this is what incenses me. This drives me up. There's a white woman in my comment. There's always a white woman in my comments. There's always a white woman. This is a truth of life. For every point of view, there's always a white woman somewhere to tell you why you're wrong and got no credentials to be doing so, but she will tell you at the top of the rooftops. The reason that I am getting this response from ADHD TikTok and people in general is because when I say that the problem is not you, when someone gets that diagnosis of ADHD, it's the most validating thing in the world. Because finally they have a reason, they have a word, they have something that they can put their experience to. There's a label you can put to the experience. But what most people don't understand is that label is not telling you why. Saying you have ADHD is not saying why. It is providing an explanation for your behaviors, but it is not the cause. It is an explanation. We don't know what the cause is. I don't need to know why you have ADHD to help you. I don't. Unless we are talking about the fact that your ADHD is in part a trauma response to the invalidating environment that you grew up in when you were younger. That is when it becomes important. So the reason I'm getting these sorts of responses from people is partly because for some white people, it's an excuse to hate a black man, and they don't get very many of those. All the excuses to hate black men are going away, and so they finally got one and they have jumped onto it. That is one reason why I am getting the response that I am. But another reason that I'm getting this response is because you're not there all the time thinking this higher level. But if ADHD isn't the cause, if that's not the problem, if I'm not the problem, then what is the problem? Why do I do the things that I do? Why do I keep making the same mistakes? Why do I keep doing the same stuff over and over and over again? Why can't I change? What is the problem? And the problem is so very simple. You don't have anybody in your life who tells you good job, even when you fuck up. Even when you make the nine. You know how parents love to say, I've already told you 6, 7, 8 times. Well, maybe if you had parents that would have told you 9, 10, 11, 12, it's okay. It's fine. You got this. You can do it. You got this. You can make it. You can do it. Yes, you made a mistake. That's all right. I love working with my ADHD clients because from the beginning to the end, it's such a difference. It's a joy to be on that journey. And sometimes that journey includes a stop at the psychiatrist's office. Shit. If you are at the place to where you are not getting your assignments turned in, if you are at the place to where you're about to lose your job, if you are at the place to where you're about to lose everything, let you meet some of my psychiatrist friends. This is my real good friend over here. He gonna make sure that you are taken care of and that you are not on too much, that you're not on too little, and that you feel comfortable. He gonna ask you questions, and me and him are gonna work real closely together so that we can monitor you while you're on this medication. Because you might need to consider that I never make that choice for my clients. And when they ask me, I make sure they have access to the resources that they need. So sometimes medication is not the only option, but it's the best option right now. I don't have time to add all this nuance to a conversation where I have 1 minute. I'm just frustrated. I'm super frustrated because there are so many people that have just internalized this message because the alternative is the way in which I was raised had a bearing on my life as an adult. Y'all, people still out here walking saying that I got spanked as a child and I turned out fine. How do you convince someone of something that the evidence is how they decide to define the word fine? If you define fine as being divorced 2 times, in and out of jobs with an alcohol problem, then that's great. That's totally okay. But if I can't get people to see that, I can't get people to see that some people who were diagnosed with ADHD, they were diagnosed that way for the benefit of their parents. Somebody said, what about as an adult? As an adult, do what you want. Do what you want, treat what you want. But I have a lot of people in my practice who thought that the fix was going to be in the pill. The pill is not going to set routine and schedule for you. It might help you get it started, 100%. It might help you get it started. But it's not going to help you set the routine and schedule because you know what the terror that happens to me, the thing that I get in practice that scares me, is when people get on this ADHD medicine, they don't make the changes they need to make, and then they hyper-focus on their failures. That is the worst. With the help of this medication, they hyper-focus on their failures. And it's just, you have no idea what that's like. Well, some of you do. People with ADHD absolutely know what it's like to hyper-focus on your failures. You absolutely do. So, man, I wish. I know what it's like to feel like something and not have the words to explain your experience and just wish there was a word to explain it. But y'all, the problem is it's not just one word. It is the experience that these people go through. It is all of it. So to be clear, for all the people who are going to do some super stalking right now, there are some people who are about to try to go find anything I've ever said ever and be upset. And I really, truly don't care. I'm gonna look at TikTok real quick because I didn't tell y'all YouTube I'm cheating. I have TikTok down here so I can feel like I'm talking to somebody, but I'm gonna talk to TikTok really quick. Like TikTok don't pay my bills. TikTok don't pay my bills. I don't care whether or not people cancel me on this app. Y'all, I can say this. Y'all didn't help me get here. Ain't nobody on TikTok help. YouTube, yes, but ain't nobody on TikTok help me get here. So I'm gonna say what I need to say. And I know who I'm talking to, and I want them to be able to find me. But it's just crazy. So I'm glad. I've